For so many people at the beginning of the pandemic, the shelters were empty. So many people were adopting dogs and cats through the pandemic. But what's it like when you lose your furry friend? It can be a devastating time. To talk more, let's bring in Dr. Mickey Golden Moore. She is the founder and facilitator for Beyond the Paw Print pet loss support groups. Thank you so much for doing this.
It's a pleasure. And thank you so much for being interested in this very tender topic. I'm really appreciative that you and your team want to give airtime to the subject of pet loss and the journey toward healing.
And I love that you just said that, a journey towards healing. And can you talk a little bit more? How did you even start this?
Well, it is such an unusual turn of events that led me to form Beyond the Paw Print. I was in the midst of a follow-up graduate program in hospice and palliative care and bereavement studies at Madonna University. And I went there to understand my own grief from the loss of both my parents. I was inconsolable. And I learned about this program at Madonna University, and I said, nothing else has helped, but I've always been a student and a graduate student, and I think maybe it would help me to better understand grief if I went into the scholarly research on this subject. And I went into that program with those objectives. While in the midst of this 2-year program, both my cats, Pablo and Nellie, went from curative to palliative care in their own health struggles and maladies. So I thought, how timely is this? I'm in the midst of this program about human loss and the life cycle that we all have to confront. And now my animals are I'm looking at the mortality, upcoming mortality of my own animals and best friends, particularly Pablo. And then they died exactly 1 month from each other in the middle of the night, rushing to an emergency room vet. And I got, as many other pet owners get, a paw print and a bill, which is expected, but the paw print wasn't. But beyond the paw print, there was no support. And this was back in March of 2008. And I went back to my classes the following week, and I met with my professor, and I said, there is no support. People are ridiculing my loss. People are laughing at my loss. People are telling me, you're crazy. Just go get another animal. There's plenty at the shelters. And so as we're discussing this in school at Madonna, my professor said, Mickey, there's a whole body of research on pet loss grief. And I said, oh my goodness, I'm going to dive in. So I changed the entire direction of my research to pet loss grief. And I started to look for pet loss support groups. I couldn't find any except at Michigan State University up in Lansing. And that was it. And so for about a year, I researched the subject. I went to human support group sessions. I interviewed authors on grief, and I went back to my professor. I said, okay, I've done all this research. I've met and interviewed all kinds of people. I still can't find a pet loss support group that I can attend. And I've learned not to mention pet loss grief when I've gone to human support group sessions. She said, Mickey, I don't think you can see it, but in your search to find support and research your heart out on this subject, you are going to be the one to provide it. And I want you to start imagining yourself as someone who can do that. And that's how it began. And on March the 9th, 2009 was the first meeting of Beyond the Paw Print. And from that very first meeting, the room was full. And I couldn't believe it. And I was crying before I stood up to speak, because I couldn't believe that there were people who showed up and that there was this community being formed. And at the end of the evening, people stood in line to say, thank you for having this venue where I can share my feelings of loss, my stories about my animal, and the lessons that I'm learning through my grief. This is going to help me in my journey toward healing. And you've got to continue this. And I thought, I never imagined it would go past the first meeting. I didn't know that anyone would show up. My husband had all our friends come because he didn't think anyone would show up. So they quietly left as the room started to fill. And after that first meeting, I said, one day I'm going to write a book about these stories. People need to know that this is a valid form of grief, that it needs to be acknowledged, validated.
Well, what a beautiful legacy that you are leaving behind for your beloved cats, and losing them so close together is so devastating. And I know that your book is Tales from Beyond the Paw Print. I was able to read it last night, and beautiful stories, because, you know, especially so many of us, we call them our fur children. And, you know, Dr. Moore, I don't know about you, but for us, we don't have two-legged babies. We've had four-legged babies. And in January 2020, we lost our Cocker Spaniel, Katie. And we'd had two other Cocker Spaniels. And, you know, when we had one, then we had a second one. So there was someone to kind of fill that void. But then, and we were able to, you know, put them down at the vet. And mentally that helped. But when Katie passed away, it was here at the house, and it was so hard. And she had a great life. I mean, she was, you know, 15 and a rescue dog. She was a breeder dog. But it's still, you have such grief. And in some ways, it can be more devastating than losing a loved one, a person, because of that day-to-day life that your pet it relies on you for. You have to get up, you have to take them for a walk, you have to feed them. And when that's gone, it is such a void.
It absolutely is. And just yesterday, someone emailed and asked if I could talk with them, a newcomer reaching out for help. And this is exactly what he said. And he said, I bet you've heard this so many times, but the grief I'm experiencing over the death of my dog is more profound than the grief I've experienced around human loved ones. And Ronnie, it's exactly what you said. And maybe for the first time, aside from our spouses, right? We want to acknowledge them, but it might be the first time that we've experienced complete unconditional love. And for this young man, he's single, doesn't have human children, and his dog was his best friend, his comforter, equal to how he was a guardian to his dog. His dog was his guardian emotionally and spiritually, and his chief comforter. And he wanted to talk about, he was in great conflict and he had a lot of guilt because he said, I'm grieving more deeply over the death of my dog than I am the humans in my life who have died. And we talked about what you just shared, that our animals are with us 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Who else can't wait to see us at the door, so excited? Like when we went on our first date with our loved ones, they couldn't take their eyes off our eyes. Everything we said was brilliant. Anything we did and wore was perfect. And our animals are like that with us every darn day. They never get tired of seeing us or hearing our voices or being loved by us. So how can we not grieve? And over the years, the other one quick point to follow your question is so many people who have come to my group over the 12 plus years I've been facilitating it, they're often single, or even if they have a family and human children, the bond they have with their animal, it is genuinely the first time they have received unconditional love without fractures and disappointments, regrets or resentments. All of that just disappears. It's love in its most pure sense. And when that goes away, it is gut-wrenching and crushing to our spirit and our heart.
Dr. Mickey Golden Moore with us here on the MegaCast. She's the founder and facilitator for Beyond the Paw Print pet loss support groups and the author of the book Tales from Beyond the Paw Print. So I have to say, we're like crazy pet parents. So my brother, this was our Cocker Spaniel, Katie. And so my brother made this 1 year for my birthday. But every year, he's an artist. So every year, it's our Christmas card. What are you going to do? And the dog would be center stage. And that's Trixie. I'm going to grab a couple of these just so you see, like every year, the dog was center stage in our Christmas card.
Oh my goodness.
She's a reindeer. There. We were like Santa and Mrs. Claus.
Oh, look at that.
And she was like the most laid back dog. So my brother even had like mugs made for us of all of our, I don't know if you could see it, of all of our different Christmas cards. So, and it's a big thing. So last year, after Katie had passed away, the rescue had called and they needed a family to foster a dog that didn't have kids and didn't have pets. And Katie had just passed the day before. So we were like, okay, we'll foster her. And so then we got Trixie. We've never had a big dog. We've only had Cocker Spaniels. And she is just a hoot.
Oh my goodness.
But I will say, so she's a mutt. They think it's Schnauzer Lab, so we call her a Schnauzer door. But Trixie's not so nice with people. But when you get a new dog, people are like, well, you have another dog. But I feel guilty, like, especially in the beginning, it was hard to bond with her because we had just lost Katie. Now she's just a part of the family.
Often people do what you guys did. And I'm thinking of one of my veteran attendees of the group, Karen, her 3-year-old dog Scout, and she's featured in the book about Scout, her story. On the way to the vet hospital after her 3-year-old Scout was hit by a car, and the news was very grim, and he ended up dying before she got there, she said she was already planning to get another dog, and she wasn't worried about comparing. She knew she'd grieve. She wasn't minimizing their relationship or his place in her heart. She knew she needed to feel a presence of a creature in her home. And she felt in honor of his life, she wanted to rescue another animal. Yeah. And she did. So, and then other people bring up Mickey. I feel like I'm going to compare one to the other and I don't want to do that, so I'm going to wait. And I said, I wish we could remove the word compare, because every day, all day long, we all compare. We compare, oh, gee, this breakfast wasn't as good as the one I made yesterday. Oh, my lawn looks better than their lawn. Oh, I like my sister today better than my brother. We compare constantly. Or yesterday was a prettier day than today. I think it's okay. And if we say to ourselves, it's okay. It's okay if I compare. Acknowledge it, acknowledge the feeling, and let it go. And just get acquainted with our new companion and get to know their unique personality attributes. And just allow yourself, this isn't Pablo, my best friend and soulmate, but I've never expected to have another relationship like I did with that animal. It was unique, and I don't expect to have it. So I do compare when I've adopted new animals over the years, but I let it go because I say, I don't expect to have another Pablo, nor do I want to, because he was my one and only. He rescued me and he saved my life. Do you know what I'm saying? And so I bring in new animals understanding that. And so I try to reassure people who come through the group who really are lonely and they want to rescue another animal. They want to save a life and give a beautiful home to another animal. But that idea of comparing holds them back. So that is some of the ways I respond to them.
I love that you have the support group, because some people get it when you say that you just lost a pet. Others are like, so? And so to be able to have that support group, because I do know friends too, that they were so devastated at the loss of their pet and that heartbreak that they don't get another one because of experiencing that grief. So it's great to have a support group such as this one. How can people join the support group?
Can I just quickly respond to what you said?
Oh, absolutely.
Because I want to share when you talked about your brother and all the things he did for you, he's acknowledging the life of Katie and her death, and he's honoring, validating, and acknowledging it with all those actions he took. His actions lifted you and supported you. And that's what's missing for so many people. And that's why they seek out the group. And so the group is called Beyond the Paw Print, and people can go to my website to learn about the meetings, to learn about how they can get the book on Amazon or order it from the website. It'll take you to Amazon. So beyondthepawprint.com will tell people all about the monthly meetings, which are always the second Monday of every month at 6:30 p.m. to 8:30. But all the details are on the website, so that no one has to write down what I've just said. And we also have a Facebook group called Beyond the Paw Print Pet Loss Support Group on Facebook. I've got about just shy of 1,000 members. And so people who it isn't convenient for them or they're not able to come to that meeting, they can go to the Facebook group, share their stories, share pictures, and then 40 or 50 people will respond if they feel touched by the story, and they get a tremendous support in that way.
So with that, are you holding the support groups in person right now?
No.
Pandemic? Oh, okay.
No. As a chaplain at St. Joe's Mercy Oakland Hospital, right away, we were getting emails and changes in everything we were doing at the hospital. And so the last meeting that was held in person was in February of 2020. And so I went right into Zoom mode. And we've been on Zoom ever since. And I think we're going to stay on Zoom indefinitely to protect each other. And the great thing about being on Zoom is I've had people from all over the United States join the meetings, which they wouldn't be able to do if I were only in person. Yeah. So I am oversubscribed every month. So I ask people to, I'll hold their place for the following month, but I'll do one-on-one telephone counseling in the interim, because I never want anyone to feel they're alone and that there isn't someone who cares or wants to listen and support them. And I do this all free of charge. This has been my mission from the beginning, to support people who might be grieving and they're in isolation and alone. And I don't want that to happen. I want people to know they're not alone. Their grief is real. Support is available, and healing is absolutely possible. And it's best done in a community of supportive, like-minded people, or if we're lucky enough to have a loving brother or other sibling or relative like your brother who gets it and joins us on our journey without saying anything. His actions speak so loudly that he validated the life and the loss of Katie.
Yeah, it's so with that, Trixie Dixie, I'll get a cookie. You can meet her. She's very treat trained. Hi, Trix, come here. Come to Mama. Come to Mama. Come up. You want to meet? Let's see. Oh, wait.
Oh!
I don't know. She's so big, but she's like, look. Okay, sit. Okay. She's like, not going to make an appearance yet.
Oh, no.
But she definitely, they fill your house. She's been a total different dog and a little bit challenging, but they fill your life and your hearts. They don't replace the other ones.
Exactly.
But they definitely help the healing process. And thank you so much for doing this and acknowledging the importance of pets and what the role that they play in our lives and in our hearts.
You're so welcome. I'm just glad that whoever all your viewers are will learn that support is available and that they can reach out. Thank you so much.